afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday lunch. Today I have the honor of introducing BethAnn Zambella. And as Director of Libraries at Denison, BethAnn provides strategic vision for the library and collaborates with faculty and administrators to help transform scholarship and teaching. She earned her master's in education at Rutgers, fabulous African Studies program, and her master's in library service at Columbia, also fabulous studies, African Studies. Her previous library gigs include Wellesley, Harvard, Rutgers, and Barnard. Having also worked in publishing, she has extensive editorial experience. Her curiosity compels her to look at challenges that cut across traditional organizational boundaries. She's always broadening her interests and vision, and this is my favorite part of her introduction. She is currently intrigued by design thinking and by the use of metaphor. She also believes everyone should snorkel more, dust less, and eat as many chocolate chip cookies as they want to. So join me in welcoming BethAnn.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. So this is my first Tuesday lunch, so I'm just getting to see what it's like to be on the other side of the table. But it's pretty exciting, and I need to make sure you all know that this is National Library Week. And when we scheduled this, we had no idea, but just worked out really well. And today, specifically, is National Library Workers' Day. So we have here in the library at Denison, we've got about 24 librarians and support staff, and about 65 student workers. So, if you see anybody else today, say Happy Library Workers' Day to them. Because, we work because they do, right? What they say. And we're also really happy to be serving all of the faculty, staff, students, community members, and academic consortia that we belong to, such as the Ohio 5, the Oberlin Group, and Ohio Link. So those are all. Maybe I should actually advance the slides. Okay, that would be good. There's your National Library Workers' Day slides. Sorry, forgot. So today, well, in the libraries, we're always fully engaged with helping people discover, access, and use information. And so today, I'm just going to focus on a few things that we've been doing to prepare for the future at Denison Libraries. So we're going to take a closer look at why the future is open, and also give you a peek into some preliminary results of research we've been doing on our research help desk. I will share conceptual drawings for the library renovations that will take place this summer and next. And lastly, I'll leave you with some parting resources that may help you get started on your own library odyssey. So when I say open in the context of libraries, how many of you have a sense of what that means? Just do like a count of hands. All right, so some of the library people in the room, but not even all the library people. That's fine, right? It's this huge, massive theoretical concept. So I've put paper and pens on the table so that as questions come up, because these are large theoretical concepts, feel free to write down your question for later, because our convention here is we'll do the questions at the end, make life easier for everybody. But if it were me, I'd be having you all dive in right now. So I'm going to turn to an organization called SPARC to help me elaborate on some of these open ideas, and that's SPARC. It's a global coalition committed to making open the default for research and education. So, and according to SPARC's website, they empower people to solve big problems and make new discoveries through the adoption of policies and practices that advance open access, open data, and open education. So we can look at a couple of those definitions just to get a sense of what they mean by that. So they call open access the free, immediate online availability of research articles, coupled with the right to use these articles fully in the digital environment. So if you're a faculty member or a scholar, that means that people can access your article as soon as it's published. You can forward it to other people. You could post it somewhere like Denison's institutional repository, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. Open education encompasses resources, tools, and practices that are free of legal, financial, and technical barriers and can be fully used, shared, and adapted in the digital environment. So an example of that is the Open Textbook Library, which we'll also talk about in a few slides. I think there's one more thing that's important to know about open. And that's that open doesn't usually mean free unless we're talking about free as in kittens, right? So when you talk about things like open source software, the free part means giving freedom to the people who use it. Doesn't mean it doesn't actually cost money. Sometimes it's less expensive, though, than commercial products. And it may mean no upfront cost to use, modify, or distribute. If we talk about open access publishing, there are many aspects to that sort of open as well. There are reader rights, reuse rights, copyrights, author posting rights, automatic posting by journals, and machine readability, just to get started. And so what that means for faculty members and other scholars is that there's a whole lot to consider when you publish with a journal or with a scholarly society, thinking about whether those rights, you retain any of those rights. And in addition, some funding agencies like the National Science Foundation are requiring scholars to provide access to the research they produce with that funding. So we have to keep that in mind too. I also would like to introduce yet another cliche, there is no free lunch, right? So in most open initiatives, someone pays the upfront or down the road costs, such as technical support, software maintenance, and upkeep or preservation. Faculty may even be asked to pay page charges or subventions. Have any faculty members in here actually paid to have their things? Okay, so that's really, yeah. So if the library doesn't pay, or the institution doesn't pay, or the faculty member doesn't pay, the publisher doesn't pay, somebody's got to pay. So an open from a publisher like Elsevier will be more expensive and have more restrictive rights than, say, something like the Center for Open Sciences archive products. So there's a real range of open options out there too. And I think, as I already mentioned, this is all kind of very theoretical. So let's look at 3 examples of open at Denison. And those are the Lever Press, the Digital Commons Institutional Repository, and the Open Textbook Network. And the reason we're pursuing these is, I mean, some people may have already like a politics or philosophy of this, right? Open is good. We're interested in open because we want to offer more access to more people more of the time without it necessarily costing more money. And again, we'll still have to wait. The jury is out on whether it will cost us more money. So the first project, the Lever Press, is something that Denison joined. It's a group of 54 academic libraries, and in a collaboration with Amherst College Press and the University of Michigan Library. And the Lever Press aims to push existing boundaries in digital scholarship. The press wants to lead the way in establishing best practices for born digital, peer-reviewed, open access monograph publishing. That is such a mouthful, right? But what it means is like a new way to produce books, and particularly electronic books. So the focus is on quote unquote the monograph, although they're open to this idea that the monograph could take a different form than just a lot of text in a big block. So Denison and 53 other liberal arts college libraries have made a 5-year financial pledge to the press, and that will allow Lever to operate a fully open access model that they're calling Platinum. So if people heard of, there's like, green open access and gold open access, and, it's getting to be like Olympic medals now. The works will be made immediately available at no cost to the reader, and neither academics nor their institutions will incur any charges. But that's because we all pledged this money up front. So Rebecca Kennedy, who's Associate Professor of Classical Studies here and directing the museum, is on the editorial board of Lever, so we're happy to have her be part of that. And we're expecting the first works to be published this year, so I keep checking. I checked right before this morning to see, did they publish anything yet? But not yet. But they're getting close. They definitely have products in the pipeline, and the goal before the end of the 5 years is to have about 60 books published. So we think maybe we'll get out 8 this year, and then they'll be able to do more each year. The next thing I want to talk about just briefly is our digital collections. So we've had digital collections at Denison for quite a while now, and Debbie is going to be the expert on this, but she's been migrating them from one platform to another, and sometimes that's slowed down our ability to really grow them. But we've got a new product called BPress, the Digital Commons from BPress, And that's going to help us, I think, really get that growth we want in the digital collections, both representing items that we hold, say items in the special collections, but also items that people at Denison create. So let me give you 2 examples of those. This is Bell Hooks, the acclaimed intellectual feminist theorist, cultural critic, artist, and writer. And she was here at Denison at the all-college convocation as the speaker in 1988. Her talk then was called Ending Domination, Healing Our Wounds. And this picture of Belle is the most heavily downloaded item from our digital collection so far. And it's part of a collection called Looking Back, Looking Forward, which was one of our first collections. We have a new collection focusing on the history of LGBTQ students on campus called The Expanding Archive, and that will be, it's available right now, but it will be more widely available again soon. Another good example of a collection is the Herbarium collection, and this sample up here is called Agramonia grippocephala. Okay, that's the hardest thing I'll have to say today. Okay, did that right? And it's a kind of a variation on the rose, I believe. But we're growing this collection by adding items from our fern collection this semester and summer. And Dr. Andy McCall and his students have helped scan those items and also helped us create the information about them that we call the metadata. And many of our digital projects like this were started with grant money from the Mellon Foundation. So if you want to know more, we can talk about that too. Between now and next fall, we're going to be expanding our digital collections to include faculty members' publications and projects too, which will make us a true institutional repository and give everyone more access to our scholars' work. That opens up a lot more questions, so hopefully you'll stick around and ask some of those. The last open thing I want to talk about that we're involved with right now is the Open Textbook Network. And we joined that as part of OhioLink, which is our statewide consortium of academic libraries. We want to help make textbooks affordable for our students. And so the Open Textbook Library, which is supported by the network, gives faculty one starting place to see what types of peer-evaluated electronic textbooks are available to their students. Faculty can also write reviews of the texts that they find here in the Open Textbook Library, so they can help their colleagues with their selections too. So I can give you just a brief sample of that. And this is a book called Choosing and Using Sources, A Guide to Academic Research. This was created at Ohio State, and it's free for any faculty member, librarian, or Denison student to use. So right now it's just hanging out in the Open Textbook Library, but someone could adopt it and use it as part of their class. This particular guide got 4.5 stars out of 5 based on 28 reviews. So it seemed good. I don't know, I took a look at it, I read a few pages. I liked the tone, I liked the, some library research books can get a little dry sometimes, I don't know. So, but if I were teaching a class on library research, I would probably use this book or a book like it, because then I wouldn't have to do that all myself. So it kind of leads to a question like, well, how are our students learning to use the library and its resources? We hope they're starting at our research help desk. But you might, I don't know if you can even discern the desk. It's not a great picture, but there's also some challenges with trying to figure out where is the research help desk. So maybe our students aren't starting there. In fact, some students say they don't like the current location of the desk in the middle of the commons. And some students start by asking their questions at the circulation desk instead, which is okay, right? But then, I don't know if you're like me, when I call the doctor's office, and I get the receptionist, and she wants to know what, basically what my issue is, right? So I tell her what my issue is, and then she's like, okay, hold please. And then I have to tell the next person what my issue is. And then when I finally make it to the doctor, I've got to tell 3 other people, and then the doctor what my, I'm tired by then. I've even lost my will to want an answer to my question at that point. So, we don't want students to have to ask too many times over and over to get the help they need. So we're really trying to understand better what we can do to get our users and their questions, answered quickly and with the least pain to them. So we've been doing research this semester. We've had 3 focus groups with students, and we'll have 1 more this week. And we also have 2 teams of data analytics students who are working with about 10 years worth of reference statistics to see what kind of trends will emerge from that as well. So far the focus groups are letting us know that some services we offer just aren't as well known as we would like them to be. For example, our personal librarian program. So far, I think 1 out of about 10 students has heard of the personal librarian program, but they haven't done anything about it. We have a chat service that most students didn't know about. Maybe you don't know about, but you will by the end of this talk. And our LibGuides, which is our guides to subjects and classes, jump-starting people's research. So we'll talk a little more about those at the end of this presentation, because I'm not going to let you out of the room until you acknowledge that you know about these things. Students also say they prefer asking a librarian their questions rather than a student worker, although we do have trained common students. And the other thing the students say is they use the research desk once or twice a year, if they use it at all. So it's really hard to figure out how we're going to structure a service that doesn't get used that often. How can we be always on if, in fact, we're just not going to get that kind of heavy, unrelenting demand? I have a couple of the charts from the data analytics students questionnaire to share with you. So this one looks at the time of semester and asks, which time of the semester would you most likely use the reference/research help desk? And students could answer more than once. So I don't have strong percentages to give you, but about the same number of students would ask early in the semester or not at all. And then in the middle, we've got a cluster who would use the service around midterms and finals. So that, might be one way we can approach it, is really saying, well, if the bulk of the use is midterms and finals, maybe we can, focus our efforts on those times too. Another question they asked was about how long do your interactions usually take? And it looked like most questions clustered between either 1 to 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, or 10 to 20 minutes. The longest bar there on the bottom represents the number of respondents who have not had an interaction at the desk. So we're looking at all of this data to make our research services better for all of our constituents. And speaking of making things better, here's an alum who's doing just that for us. And I want to thank Stanford University for the use of this photo of Sue. So Sue O'Donnell, class of '67, you may have heard. Maybe that's what brought you here today. Recently gave us a gift of $7.5 million to the university. About $5.7 million of that will go towards renovating the library. So Sue and her husband Bob are actually both giving that gift in support of the Unlocking Potential campaign. And Sue's mother was a librarian, so that's part of her interest in the library. And she loved the library when she was here as a student. And her father was an editor and writer as well, so she's got a very literary and background. The majority of the gift, $5.7 million, will allow Denison to renovate both the 1936 and 1958 sections of the William Howard Doan Library. So the original entrance to the library at the top of the limestone steps will be reinstated with a new lobby and reception space. And then the 1936 building of the library complex, which includes the president's room, this new space they're calling the gallery, which I'll show you, and third floor reading rooms will be renovated and named Dowdett Hall after Sue. And then interior work within the 1958 sections will necessitate renovations to the basement, the second through the fifth floors, including replacement of HVAC and mechanical systems, roofs, and windows. So that's, even though that's the least sexy part of the project, that's what we're most excited about, because Sue's gift will really allow us to extend the lifespan of this building for another 50 years. And that's so important when we're not going to knock the library down and start all over. So a portion of that work will begin this summer, and then we'll complete it next summer in 2019. We're working with the architecture firm BHDP, and I'm really sorry because I can't say those letters in a row really fast. But so I want to thank them for the drawings and many of the photos that I'm now going to show you. They worked up. And most of these are conceptual drawings. So does anybody know what a conceptual drawing is? That's like the architect's dream, right? So again, our results may vary, but we're hoping it's going to really connect to reality when we're all done. So we started with some guiding principles, and those were making the space valuable, flexible, inclusive, accessible, inspiring, comfortable, and inviting. So we hope you'll join us as we try to make that happen. And then the next thing we did was we mapped the 3 different building eras to 3 of our guiding values. So the original building, is it purple up there? It is, look at that. The original 1936 building, which is kind of the purple blob you might be able to discern, has its warm wood, fine finishes like marble, and so that represents inspiring, the inspiration piece of what we're doing with this project. The 1958 section, which looks a little bluish, houses most of our physical collections, and that represents what is valuable. And then the brown chunk there is the 1981 wing, really 2 wings, and mostly that open floor plan and space for people, and that represents learning. So that's kind of where we started as we looked at how to approach this renovation. So this summer we'll start the window and roofing work, and here's just an example of the elevation drawings they made to figure out, what kinds of windows can we put in what kinds of places to, again, keep the character of when those buildings were built. And we'll look at next some before photos and after conceptual renderings. And I think the main thing to notice is how much more open the building will look following our open theme today. So here's the original 1936 lobby. This picture was taken around 1940. And I want to thank Sasha Griffin, our archivist, for finding this photo and many others that guided this work in the university archives. So, okay, how many people remember what this looked like? Okay, good. No one's going to admit it, right? Okay. All right. But hopefully everyone will be here to see what this looks like. And so you can tell a lot of recapturing that, moving the service desk over, and I love the little lamps they've got there. I don't know who's going to clean them, but it'll be good. You would be walking in to see the glass on the right with little panes. That would be the entrance. And then the president's room is also a piece. Wait, where have I gone? Oh, okay, there we go. All right, sorry. So the president's room on the main floor looks about like this today, and they want to spruce that up as well. You might be catching a theme here in that they want to put red everywhere. Debbie and I are going to do our best to make sure that not everything is turned red, as lovely an accent color as it is. But really, new lighting and new flooring will be really great for this space and for all the reading room spaces. So you can see there's more of like a hardwood floor with an oriental rug look to it, and then just some nicer lighting than those long fluorescent tubes, which nobody really loves. This area is when you get to the top. If you take the grand staircase up from the old part of the building and look across towards the south, this is the 3rd floor gallery, what they're calling it. And right now there are some study rooms there, and we may retain those study rooms, but the artist rendering ticks away those walls, and look at that. Isn't that fabulous? Don't you want to go study there right now? I do. I'm going to have my lunch breaks up there when it's done. So we may end up, retaining those rooms and doing some glassing in those spaces, because we would like to keep all of that great, beautiful natural light there. And then this is the fine arts reading room. The music reading room is just across the way and has a similar look. You might notice on the left the pile of electrical cords, which is so attractive. So we're hoping to get more outlets in this space. I was really hoping to have wireless electricity by this point. In fact, many people had promised it to me, but they have not come through. Popular science, I'm talking to you. No, wait, maybe it was Dina. Someone told me about wireless electricity. I started following it, and I said, yeah. But at any rate, we hope to, get some more outlets where people can use them and not have so many cords. And also a little bit room, more shelving for the oversized books in those spaces as well. So that's exciting. And I think this is our last before and after. And this is a sample kind of group study space and what they might do there. And so if you look on the left, like under the table there and behind the column, there's heating on the wall there, HVAC on the wall. So one reason we'd like to redo the HVAC is so we can open up views like that and do more with glass. So I guess, you know, the engineers are coming soon, and we'll find out if this is really a possibility. But what we hope for in all of these newer spaces is that it's cleaner, lighter, more flexible. You know, in this particular study space, we've got, you know, huge whiteboards, or maybe it's just a wall of whiteboard paint and a big projection screen for sharing individual laptop screens or for practicing a presentation like this one. So we're very excited about all that. So I leave you with that kind of a dream, right? But I also want to leave you with some real parting tips. And so I want to talk about just two things, the chat service. Has anybody here ever used the chat service? All right, I got a few folks, great. So our chat service is basically available when the librarians are on the reference desk. And I'm going to escape and go to the library webpage for a minute. Let's see if I can do that. And if you wanted to get to our chat service and you haven't had a chance to use it before, one way is to just scroll down from the library's main page, and there's a link that says Chat with a Librarian. So you can do that and just type your chat right in there. And then the second thing I wanted to make sure that you all know about, again, I'm just at the library homepage here. If you scroll down to the helpful links section, is our LibGuides, which are our subject and class guides. So that's what it says right here, subject and class guides. Isn't it showing? Okay. And you can get a list of all the guides. You can get them by subject. So the subjects are the subjects that our students take classes in, right? If we go to the by type category, there's this type called general purpose. And I thought you were a kind of general purpose audience. So I was going to zoom in on a couple of those. One of those is one of the guides I made, so I shouldn't be prejudiced in showing you that, but is affordable learning at Denison. But as we're talking about things like textbooks and open educational resources and using e-textbooks, I have made a tab called Especially for Faculty to try to talk a little more about what open educational resources are, how you can discover texts, how you might find texts in specific areas and disciplines. And so that's under affordable learning, which is the umbrella that OhioLink and the whole state is using as they're talking about electronic textbooks. Another source that I thought might be of value to anybody who works with students is our citation help pages. So students can get help with every single citation style. There are examples right here online. And we also lead them to some of the books that we have, but even if all you've got is going online, you'll be able to get there. Oh, I keep jumping around here. And then lastly, we have, well, let's see if I can do this. Let me go back to my guides for a second. If I go to, we will have under general purpose, but now have under topic, a guide called Life After Denison. And we've done this to help students who get used to all of the great resources at Denison and then find they don't have access after they leave campus. Some things are just to help people focus on grad school and finding a job. But you'll see that there's a couple different tabs here, one called Freely Available Research Sources and Freely Available Data Sets that anybody might find useful as well. A lot of these are government resources or resources that are open sources, like the archive.org project. So I invite you to take a look at those. So I hope you now learned at least 2 more things than you knew before you came in today. But I also invite you, if you have any questions, let me go back to that. we can start the question part now. So thank you so much.